You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the biohealth capital region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis. I'm your host for BioTalk, and I have the privilege today. We're taping the last BioTalk of 2024 with a person that's going to be very interesting for all to hear, but you're probably not going to get to hear him until the new year launches. But we really appreciate Bill Tompkins, the president and CEO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, being available the week of Christmas for us to tape this podcast for BioTalk for this year. Bill, welcome to BioTalk.
Thanks. I'm happy to join you. Economic development takes place all year long.
And it takes a priority over Christmas shopping, you told me.
Yes, but not for long.
Okay, hopefully your family will hear this next year so that they'll know that the priority for you took care of the priorities after we're done with this taping, right?
You got it.
Got it. Well, we like to start every one of our podcasts, Bill, for the audience, basically by you introducing yourself, because I could read your resume, but nobody can introduce yourself better than you can. So you can go back as far as you'd like. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you evolved to become the president and CEO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation.
Sure. Well, first of all, a little bit of background. I grew up here in the DMV. So I was born and raised in DC and Montgomery County, have lived back in Montgomery County for quite a while, and grew up in a life sciences related family, a medical family. There are over, I think, 12 physicians, either aunts, uncles, parents, siblings, and so forth. And the one thing I learned was it was not for me. So I went away to Tufts up in Boston and studied economics, and then went to the Harvard Business School, studied marketing, and came back to DC. And for almost 20 years, worked at the Washington Post as a senior executive there in the media business. Went out to California and worked in the entertainment industry for 11 years, working for Kodak, doing everything from marketing to general management, and came back to the East Coast. And while I was here, I was doing business strategy consulting, mostly for small businesses, helping them develop their strategic plans, running retreats, all kinds of things. And suddenly, sitting at my desk, someone showed me a job posting for Chief Operating Officer position at Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. Even though I lived here, I always focused on DC being the mecca of the region, which it is, in terms of long-term economic development and stability. And I looked around, I said, economic development in my neighborhood, let me think about this. So I just decided to apply and became the Chief Operating Officer, then Executive Vice President, and now President and CEO for the last 2 years. So it was because I had a business background that I was hired. And now that I've been here, I've learned all aspects of good economic development and what it takes from my point of view to keep the economy thriving in terms of job growth, job retention. We focus quite a bit on companies we're trying to help grow here and to expand, but also in terms of attracting businesses to come both to the region and here.
Well, we're glad that you were attracted back, Bill, because you're serving that role well right now. But I'm going to digress a second because you mentioned the term Kodak. And a lot of people listening to this probably have never heard of Kodak. You know, the funny thing is we're a little bit both dinosaurs because I work for Polaroid. And a lot of people don't even know who Polaroid is today, even though they've reintroduced another instant camera. But Kodak and Polaroid used to be major rivals. And if you look at what's evolved in technology today, with cameras and the way that images are taken and shared, it's a totally different world than what you and I grew up with.
Absolutely. In fact, the reason I joined Kodak was to help them go through the digital transformation from film to digital. And in the motion picture industry, which is what I focused on, it wasn't quite ready. So for consumer film, the cameras started clicking in pretty quickly and the technology changed almost overnight. But for shooting movies and the print films that you see on the screen, the industry was too used to it. They liked the richness of the film. And it took an extra 10 or 12 years before the industry converted over to almost all digital. So on the screens, all you'll see are digital prints. It's streaming technology. Some movies are still shot on film, but most of it is shot just like you use your smartphone.
And the thing that's amazing is the technology back then. I had the privilege of working with Edwin Land, who is the founder of Polaroid. And back in the 70s, when I worked there, and I'm dating myself a little bit, he had in his laboratory a television that was wall mounted in 1970. And what is that, 60 or I don't know how many years, 50 years before we actually started to see wall mounted televisions appear. But it shows the vision that the innovators back in those days had, but the market really wasn't ready for it, nor was the technology ready to evolve. But we're really focused on the life science industry at BioHealth Innovation, and that's one of the major industries within Montgomery County, Maryland. So, well, let's talk to the listeners a little bit about what MCEDC does, where it's its primary industry focus, and how do you basically support this broad base of industries within Montgomery County at Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation?
Sure. So our focus is on literally trying to attract businesses here, retain the ones that are here, and help them expand. And then to market the county as a great place to do business. So we have certain industries that we focus on behalf of the county. We're a public-private partnership. But the key industries that we've been asked to look at include life sciences, with a particular focus on cell and gene therapy, vaccines, and so forth. Corporate hospitality. This is also, as we'll talk later, this is actually the epicenter of the corporate hospitality industry for the United States. So 80% of corporate hospitality headquarters are here in this region and 50% right here in Montgomery County. We work on technology companies, especially cybersecurity, corporate nonprofits, and the healthcare industry. Those are our sweet spots. And then we always work to help evolve underserved business communities across the board. But we work closely with Montgomery County Business Center, who handles smaller businesses, much more retail and so forth. And going back to life sciences, that is our number one industry for a lot of reasons. As you know, this region is the number 3 biocluster in the country, and it took a while to get here, and we want to make sure that it stays here. So when we think about life sciences companies, we are working on everything from helping them to expand their workforce, to expand their footprint. You have 2 big ones that happened recently that have been in the news and will continue to be in the news. And that's with AstraZeneca, a $300 million investment in 2 facilities, and MilliporeSigma, which just moved into its new building, consolidating from 4 buildings. It's actually happening as we speak. Those are just small examples of what it takes. We want to see that footprint expand. Where are they getting the space? Where are their employees going to come from? What types of capital do they need to expand? And then are there ways for us to look at new product lines that they may be developing? So that would be typical with life sciences companies. Quite often they need specialized space, wet labs, as you're very familiar with. We have about 8 or 10 million square feet of wet labs here in Montgomery County. That number may be off a little bit. Actually, you're the expert on that, but it's growing. Since pre-COVID to now, 2 million square feet of new space was planned, and about 1 million square feet of that actually has been put into production, either new space or old space that was converted. Now, from a competitive point of view, here's where it helps us. We have enough space now. Before, we didn't have a large enough supply. The economy has slowed down, and as it picks back up, we will be in a great position to absorb the demand that we think will come back, both for businesses that are here and for startups, but also life science companies in other markets.
Great summary of the big focus for MCEDC. I wasn't aware that 80% of the headquarters in the DMV for hospitality. That's pretty dramatic. So everybody knows about Marriott, which is in Montgomery County.
Sodexo, you've got most of the real estate investment trusts. For instance, if you've been reading the media, 2 of the large companies, one of which I'm allowed to talk about, which is Marriott. Actually, the other is in Chicago. They have less than 5 or 10% of their portfolio are owned properties. So they are management companies as opposed to real estate companies. On the flip side, the real estate investment trusts that actually own the hotels are significantly headquartered here. And so you've got that. You've got companies like Sodexo who are suppliers. So you've got the management companies, the ownership companies, and the concentration is just incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That's, I think, a bit of information that the listeners may not be familiar with, but we're going to totally focus as much as we can today on the life science and the biohealth capital industry. And when you talk about large companies like AstraZeneca, Millipore, United Therapeutics, Novavax, Emergent, all of these big companies, then you have the majority of the companies that reside within Montgomery County are small businesses with less than 50 employees. So give me an example of some of the programs that you help promote and support for both the large business sector as well as the small business sector. I'm going to start in the large business first, and then we'll get down to the small business sector, which we seem to have a lot more emphasis on for biohealth innovation.
Sure. So for both the large and mid-sized, both the state in particular has a number of incentive programs where Montgomery County piggybacks and adds money, especially if a company is expanding and adding capital and jobs. And the life sciences industry and biotech in particular can be very capital intensive. So that lends itself to a number of the funds that both the state and county provide. And they tend to come from an economic development fund where they originally start out as the equivalent of loans that are then forgiven over time if a company continues to grow and commits X amount of dollars to jobs and to capital. On the smaller side, a good example would be our MOVE grant program, which has just been revitalized and expanded, where if you're moving into Class A office space, the county will provide you money to offset your expenses. It used to be up to $80,000, now up to $150,000 if you're coming into the county. But also for businesses that are here, as long as you increase your footprint by 500 square feet or more, then you're eligible up to that amount of money based on the amount of square footage that you take. And so that program is very popular. You, I think, are an expert on the SBIR and STTR programs, which come out of government. But in Montgomery County, we have the largest percentage of recipients where those funds are going to startups, to research institutions, and so forth. And that's a very rich environment for us, whether those are coming out of NIH or other government institutions. We just launched 3 programs. One is a jobs program, and that's for job creation. With that program, if you expand your footprint in terms of personnel by 5 jobs or more, and they have to be high-paying jobs, $100,000 a year or more, then the county will provide a $10,000 incentive for each of those jobs, capped at $500,000. And if it's in an underserved zone, it's $12,000 a job. Now, some people go, well, that's a pretty high threshold. But if you look at the average salary in the life sciences industry here, it's closer to $150,000. So it's not a major problem or major hurdle. That program was launched in October. We have 2 programs that launched within the last 30 days. And this is for startups and early stage companies. One is the Founders Fund. The other is the Technology Innovation Fund. Let me go backwards and start with the Technology Innovation Fund. That is a $7 million fund that is designed for startups who have raised at least $50,000, but no more than $5 million. You've got to have at least 1 employee. There's some other criteria, but it's basically to support companies after they've gotten started where they're just about ready to run out of money, but they need a crutch. So we'll give you $200,000, assuming that you fit the criteria of demonstrating a new marketing plan. It could be proof of concept. It could be a number of criteria.
Bill, when you say we'll give you, do you mean it's a grant?
It's a grant, and it's done in 2 tranches. So if you receive the grant after you've applied, then we'll give you 50% of that $200,000 right up front, and then 50% once you've hit all of the requirements for whatever you put into your business plan. We have a similar program that is called a Founders Fund, and that's where we give out grants of up to $100,000, same general approach, but it's geared for companies in underserved business communities. So if you're an MBE company or a veteran-owned company or working in one of the county's designated community index, I believe it's called, areas, then you will qualify as long as that's where your company is. And it's also tied to everything from expanding your company. You can use it for personnel, but no more than 50% of your personnel costs. So we're trying to be as broad as we can to demonstrate that we have an active innovation ecosystem here. And life sciences is a big part of that.
It's great to see those new enhanced programs. But just to clarify, those are not just limited to life science companies. Those could be for companies in any industry. Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, great. Yeah. So really, when our team promotes Montgomery County as really one of the leading counties in the United States for companies to be retained or be attracted to, we really talk about some of the unique things that Montgomery County offers that we're not aware other counties in the United States offer, especially for the life science industry. And you already mentioned the SBIR program, which is a matching SBIR program that if a company is a recipient of a small business innovation research grant, then they can apply to Montgomery County to get a matching grant. I think it's about the $25,000 for an SBIR phase 1, and is it $50,000 for a phase 2?
I believe it's 50 after that. And we're the only jurisdiction in the country, I believe, that has a matching grant program.
Yes. As far as I can determine, there are states that have matching grant programs. I'm not aware of a city or a county that has a matching grant program.
Exactly. And the other advantage to being here, there are between 350 and 400 life sciences related companies here in Montgomery County. So you've got a great community. You've got, of course, the backbone of 18 federal agencies, of course, NIH and the FDA in particular. You've got the National Cancer Institute. You've got NIST. And you're going to see more and more of the marrying of healthcare, life sciences, and technology coming together. And at some point, we'll talk about the Institute for Health Computing, but that's designed to facilitate the growth of the life sciences industry here. We've added actually an additional person on our staff to work in the life sciences industry. I just came back from Boston, where we are establishing stronger relationships with companies that are both here and there, and then the real estate entities that facilitate growth. We'll do the same thing in San Francisco. We'll be at the JP Morgan conference. And the objective is to demonstrate our commitment to life sciences and also to educate companies that may be aware or may not be aware of what this county has to offer, both in terms of space, the talent, the background, the financial programs, and so forth. So we see life sciences continuing to evolve and grow here. And I don't see any barriers. There are other markets that we compete with, but it's quite often for different components of life sciences. So we have a little bit of pharma here, but not much. We have a little bit of med tech, which is growing, but not as much, not like Minneapolis. And so each part of the country has different areas of specialization. But when it comes to cell and gene therapy, vaccines, and other types of research, this is the sweet spot and will continue to be.
One of the reasons that Montgomery County remains the epicenter of some of these unique niches within life sciences. And I'm going to revert back just to two other programs that Montgomery County offers that I'm not aware any other city or county in the United States has. One, Maryland has a biotechnology investor tax credit program. And if somebody qualifies at the state level to get a biotechnology investor tax credit for the investors investing in high-risk early-stage companies, and they happen to reside in Montgomery County, Bill, I believe there's a matching program that people can apply for at the county level.
That is correct. So that's where we have the stickiness factor, that it makes sense to be here and stay here, even within the state. So there are some competitive advantages to being here versus Baltimore, as an example, which also has the representation for life sciences. But here you have more financial resources to help you out, to be of assistance. We also have, through our Montgomery Planning, a fast track system for life sciences companies that are starting up in terms of space, getting through that whole planning process. And we're continuing to look at that to make it attractive and easier to do business across the board in the life sciences industry. Interestingly, a lot of people have asked, well, what's going to happen now that we have a new federal administration coming in? And one day it looks bright. The next day it's like everybody's shaking in their boots. What's going to happen to the federal workforce? And especially when you have the big agencies we have here, part of it is to be aware, but also to wait and see. And one of the things that should there be a reduction in workforce due to demanding that employees come back to work, that we got a lot of people with the right degrees, the right background, the right pedigree to fill the shortage of jobs that we have, or the shortage of talent that we have in the life sciences industry here. So we're hoping that it doesn't happen, but if it does, there are many ways to absorb the talent that may leave the federal workforce should that be an issue.
Well, I think that's one of the benefits of being the third largest life science cluster in the United States. We have a cluster effect, which means we do have numerous companies and institutions involved in life sciences, which should be able to absorb in the event anything like that would happen, which we hope it doesn't. We hope that the investments continue to increase in NIH, FDA, and other areas. There may be a different balance in where those investments go, but we still believe that their missions are critical to everyone in the United States, and Montgomery County is one of the epicenters that continues to support that mission for improving healthcare for all people. But there's one last unique program that I'm not aware any other city or county has in the United States, and that's the Executive in Residence program, which BioHealth Innovation works with Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation and the County Executive's Office. And just for listeners to understand what that is that a lot of the early stage companies cannot afford to get the C-level talent into their companies as they're growing. And one of the things that Montgomery County recognized, and Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, was why don't we find some way to provide those resources to those companies that can't afford to have that knowledge or access to networks they have? And what they're doing in partnership with BHI, BioHealth Innovation, is making executives in residence who have that industry and investment experience available to the early stage entrepreneurs and growth companies, and providing this C-level talent to them in the same fashion as a grant, rather than them having to pay for that talent. And they can work as a fractional C-level person for these emerging companies for maybe up to a 6-month period when the company can afford to pay these people themselves. So I'm not aware, Bill, and this is really a very important program for these life science companies in Montgomery County, which they can't get this kind of access to resources like that anywhere else in the DMV, BHCR, or in the United States that I'm aware of.
No, and I think you said you've got 6 in residence right now, which is great. I've met several of them over time, and they've got the technical expertise. They have the expertise across the board, whether it's about having a background in venture and all kinds of things that will help a company get on its feet. And we've referred many companies to you, many startups. So there are an abundance of resources here in Montgomery County. Another organization, in addition to BHI, and we're lucky to have BHI headquartered here, we've got the Maryland Tech Council, where it's obviously for the entire state of Maryland, but they're moving their headquarters back to Montgomery County in January. We have the BioHub, which is designed to help train potential employees in the industry as it evolves. And we have a relationship with the universities at Shady Grove to help with the talent pipeline, working directly with life sciences companies. So there are an abundance of resources that are here, both for training, whether it be technical, whether it be to help you with your business plan. And thank God we do have you right up the road, but we've been a partner with you for many, many years.
As long as MCED's been in existence, really. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is that Montgomery County likes to partner with other organizations, and the academic institutions are extremely critical as we're trying to develop talent as well as new technology. And one of the newer programs the county is partnered on, as you mentioned, is the Institute for Health Computing, which is headquartered in Montgomery County. So let's talk a little bit about that and educate the listeners about the Institute for Health Computing, which is a partnership with the University System of Maryland.
Yep. The University of Maryland has established this both with the University System of Maryland, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and they are located here. So they're our partners too. And they've got 70 employees, believe it or not. They were created 2 years ago. And it's really designed to look at the convergence of healthcare, information, and technology with AI, designed to create real world solutions to problems in both the healthcare industry using different tools to solve problems, to help with research, to bring other research institutes here, other researchers here, and to marry that with companies who want research done on their behalf to help solve those problems. So we're very proud of what they've been able to accomplish just in 2 years. They will have raised over $100 million over a 6-year period to ensure that they can build momentum. They're in temporary headquarters now, but hope to have a long-term facility shortly. And it's a great opportunity for us to shine on a worldwide stage in terms of expanding the life sciences corridor here, such that in the area where they are locating near Pike and Rose, North Bethesda, we see more potential life sciences companies evolving and building around that facility as it grows. But the talent that it brings is what's so incredible, not just the researchers, but then with the grants that are provided for them to do more research, it's going to bring more, we hope, venture capital, more startups to work with the Institute as it expands what it's doing.
The unique thing about this Institute for Health Computing is Montgomery County was one of the founders in partnership with the University of Maryland. And you mentioned $100 million over the next 6 years. I think the key is the county believes in this so much, they've made a significant financial commitment to the Institute for Health Computing to be one of its partners, and will continue to strongly support this institute as it evolves, looking for its permanent location, and maybe have the ability to build a campus around the institute, because it does then give us this academic presence, which we've been looking for within Montgomery County, in addition to the universities of Shady Grove.
I think it will make a real difference because we don't have a permanent facility other than the universities at Shady Grove in terms of a medical institution. This will be actually the best of all worlds, where it is bringing medical care, with the university systems behind it, to the convergence of the best in information technology. And one of the strongest AI centers in the country is at the University of Maryland. So the University of Maryland resources where they brought all of this together here in Montgomery County. And I will say this is under the brainchild of our county executive, Mark Elridge, who had this vision for what could be done with the resources we have here. And $40 million has been committed at the local level alone. So the commitment is here. Again, I was just over there the other day. They did incredible demos using virtual reality, using all kinds of technology in terms of 3D capabilities to help you think through complex problems, to look at how the brain thinks, a healthy brain versus one that's not so healthy, all kinds of things.
Yeah, we're really excited about it because really having that headquartered in Montgomery County just strengthens the whole biohealth capital region. And you mentioned the University of Maryland, and a lot of people don't know it, but it's one of the top computer science universities in the United States and in the world. And the first quantum computing intellectual public offering or public company came out of the University of Maryland. And you'd expect that to happen out of Boston or San Francisco, but it happened right in out of the University of Maryland. So there's a lot of firsts, and we continue to do more first, which this institute will be one of the first in the world focused on what it's focused on. And having it located in Montgomery County just strengthens the diversity and the unique assets that we have within the county to support this life science industry. But we know that next year is going to be a little different for everybody. And you're not on a calendar year, you're on a fiscal year. So you're just getting to your half year point, which would be December, but you're doing planning as you get ready for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26. So how do you look at the future, Bill? Talk a little bit about the priorities as you're looking for your planning for the next fiscal year. And I know they're going to go through the budgeting process in the first quarter of 2025 for what's going to happen in the fiscal 26. How do you see anything you're focused on now changing, or will it just be a re-emphasis on strengthening all your existing programs?
Well, There's definitely a re-emphasis on strengthening our existing programs, but there are a couple of areas that we'll pay additional attention to. While we've always done business attraction, we're going to be more aggressive in terms of our footprint across the United States, in terms of our ongoing presence, not just marketing, but the events we do, the conferences we attend, the partners that we develop, especially through site selectors. There will be a greater emphasis there in markets that are important for our key industries. Two, our focus on international will continue to grow. So while that's not new, it's still evolving because there are incredible opportunities for startups and other companies to come to Montgomery County. Both the state and the county have a great soft landing program, and that will continue to expand both in Asia, Europe, and et cetera, assuming we receive the funding, which I think we will. So those are two areas that I believe will be funded. Now, not at MCEDC, but something that we very much support is the expansion of our incubator network into an innovation network that will be hopefully funded by and to the county. They will be asking for additional funding to expand that network. And I think it's really important when it comes to startup companies, life sciences, in particular technology. And while it's not our program, we feel that we are partners in ensuring that that's going to be successful. So there are a couple of new things, but a couple of things that have evolved over just the last year or two that we'll continue to work on in terms of expansion.
This has been very interesting. Even though we talk on a frequent basis, I've learned some things by doing this in-depth interview with you related to Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. But are there any other topics or areas that we haven't discussed you'd like to let the listeners know about?
Just to understand what an incredible, as we call it, the epicenter of the third largest bioscience market in the country. And what is most important is because of all the momentum we're building, that means there's a lot more to come. And so wherever you are across the country, you want to have a stake here in some fashion. And we invite you to join us if you're not already here. And for those who are here or who know about us, continue with your expansion plans because we have the resources you're going to need. Life sciences will continue to be increasingly important to the U.S. economy. You know, we're all getting older as a population, but we're also living longer. And that's where the focus and the importance of this particular industry will continue to grow, regardless of which administration is running the country. We believe we'll have that support for the long term.
Yeah, speaking for myself, and I know you're much younger, but this whole aging population is one of the things I'm very interested in. And I hope that they continue to improve the science and technology to enable all of us of my generation to have a high quality of life, not just live longer, but have a quality longer life. And I think a lot of that is evolving through what the research is that's going on and the new innovation within the companies and the institutions within Montgomery County.
And I didn't mention this, and something you're well aware of. If you take an institution like NIH, which is one of the largest funders of healthcare and life sciences research in the country, since 2014, we have gotten more and more money each year from NIH to support our growth in terms of research and investment. So there's a lot that is happening right here. And to have a record that's 10 years old, 10 years in a row is a very good sign.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to go back a little bit, NIH has over a $50 billion annual budget, and there's over 6,000 scientists residing in Montgomery County, which is the highest concentration of life science scientists anywhere in the world located in one general area. So we're honored to have NIH within Montgomery County in our region, and we continue to hope that they continue to get support from this new administration because it's a critical institution that benefits all American citizens, Bill.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank Bill Tompkins, who is the president and CEO of Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, for being on BioTalk today. We're going to come back to Bill sometime in 2025 after all of these new programs are launched and talk about the impact they've had on our region and on Montgomery County. And if you're not in Montgomery County today or don't have a presence, I don't understand why, because if you listen and talking to Bill, it's the only place to be if you have a life science company. Is that right, Bill?
That's right.
Thank you very much, Bill. Enjoy the holiday, and we'll talk to you in 2025.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.